This is TalkLoudRadio.com.
Deep one for the end zone. Phelan is down there. Oh, he got it! He got it! He got it!
What is going on, guys? All right, welcome to episode 27 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts, you're going to find us. And of course, we are live on Facebook every Tuesday night around this time. We got a great show today. We have a returning guest coming on, making his first appearance in 2018. It's a good friend of mine, Shane Clawson. We call him a.k.a. Nostra-Dumbass, a little tongue-in-cheek there. He's kind of a jinx with his favorite teams. He seems to make a bold prediction, and the opposite always seems to happen for his favorite team. So we're going to have him come on the show tonight, talk a little bit of fantasy football. He's a little bit of an expert in fantasy football. I actually play with him in a dynasty league, so I'm going to get him on and get his thoughts about some of the players out there right now. He's actually my only guest that actually has his own intro music. So I'm going to hit that intro music now, and then we'll bring him on.
He goes by many names: the Jinx, the Curse, the Kiss of Death. His predictions aren't always wrong, but they are never right. GoingFor2.com presents, from the Talk Loud Radio studios, Nostra-Dumbass and the worst predictions ever.
All right, and with that, I want to welcome to the show Mr. Shane Clawson. How you doing tonight, man?
Jeff, it's been so long, my friend. What is up, my man?
It's good to have you back on, man. I know at one point last year I had you on pretty much every week giving your predictions, and I think the last time we left off, being the jinx and all, I think you were 500. You were batting 500, so I did you a disservice by stopping having you on the show.
I started to get a rhythm going for a little while, and then just kind of got, left in the dust. And, after that, man, I heard you mention the Dynasty League we're in. After that, things just kind of went tumbling down. But I've got a plan. I tell our friends to trust the process, and I think it's going to be a much better year. And hopefully tonight we can kind of go over some key plays that I'm kind of targeting, and make it a successful season for everybody.
Definitely, because me and you, I think it's about 2 weeks from now, we're going to have our Dynasty Rookie League draft, so we're both kind of cramming and prepping for that draft. So this is kind of a little bit of a prerequisite to that. We can do some studying at the same time, do a podcast at the same time.
Yeah, the off season is usually my favorite time of year because I feel like I'm not losing, so I tend to enjoy it a lot more. I like the rookie drafts. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Definitely.
Don't have to worry about taking an L. We're all the same playing field, and a few of us got more picks than others. So
definitely,
like somebody like me, I'm gonna enjoy it because I've got quite a few.
You got quite a few picks. Yep, definitely. So before we get into fantasy football, I kind of mentioned at the top that you're sort of a jinx to the local team here in Washington, D.C., which you're a fan of pretty much all of them. So I want to get your prediction, kind of piss some people off here, of Game 7, which will be tomorrow night. If you're watching this live, it'll be tonight if you're listening to it on audio, of the Caps game. What's your prediction for the Caps game, Game 7?
Well, Jeff, I'll tell you one thing. I actually made it to Game 4. I went there in high hopes that, the Caps lost Game 3 against Tampa. I'm like, all right. That's just kind of a fluky thing. We just slaughtered this team's Game 1 and 2. Game 3, it's a DC sports team. You're not just going to sweep a team in the playoffs, especially the Eastern Conference Finals, because we never make it here. So I'm thinking like, all right, Game 4, get that Game 3 loss out of the way. I'm coming in pumped. The crowd was pumped. and we just got our asses kicked. It was probably Tampa's greatest game of the whole series.
Of course, you're in the building, man. It's going to happen.
Right. So, honestly, last night when I was watching the game, one thing I noticed about the Caps is I've never seen a team lay down some harder hits in my life on ice skates. It literally looked like a bunch of linebackers out there just picking these guys off, and they played with aggressiveness. I honestly think we are going to win. We played much better on the road. We're like the road warriors of the playoffs, and that's kind of how we got this far to begin with. But I will say one thing. I love the aggression that we used last night, but one thing that worries me is I don't want to come out too aggressive, because what's going to end up happening is we're not going to be focused. We're going to go for these big hits. We're going to slip up once, and it's going to lead to some breakaway goals. Tampa's fast, and they're going to be ready for us. So hopefully the Caps play smart, and we might see us a championship series in DC. That'd be crazy.
That would be crazy. I don't think we've had one here in at least 20 years that I know of. I think the Caps were probably the last one in the championship series 20 years ago. So.
Yep, 1998, we got swept by the Red Wings, who were one of the greatest dynasties in hockey history. So, yeah, that happened.
All right. So we got your prediction. You heard it here first. Caps are going to win. You heard it from the Jinx himself. So let's see if that happens tomorrow night. All right, man. Let's talk a little bit of fantasy football now. I've had quite a few podcasts lately in regards to rookies and everything else. So I want to talk a little bit more above and beyond just the rookies this time. I want to do a little thing that we call Breakout or Fakeout. Basically, I'm going to give you a name of a player, and a player that's going to be he's sort of predicted this year to have a big breakout season. And I want to get your opinion. Is he going to be a breakout like we expect him to be, or is he going to be a fake out and just kind of fall flat on his face? We'll kick off with one that I'm not a big fan of, but I see him ranked pretty high in a lot of rankings. And that's running back Joe Mixon. Of course, was a rookie last year. This is going into his second year. Jeremy Hill is now gone, so he gets pretty much the lead role there. What do you see for Joe Mixon, a breakout or a fake out?
Definitely a fake out, Jeff. I just see a lot of mediocrity, and that's my opinion. We had, somewhat of a good sample size last year. He played 14 games. 178 rushes with 626 yards, only 4 touchdowns. In my opinion, I just think that offense in general, Cincinnati's offense is kind of in shambles right now. I think they're still kind of trying to find themselves. With the Red Rifle and Andy Dalton still back there, we still got AJ Green. Obviously, you would think this is going to be a pass first offense. I don't see Mixon really having the tools, and I think he's going to get really shadowed out in this league now with the up and coming running backs, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this year's draft. So I'm going to have to go fake out, especially in fantasy purposes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too, and I've gotten to this argument quite a few times on Twitter over Joe Mixon. Everyone seems to have this Joe Mixon love. After a subpar rookie year, I think he averaged 3.7 yards per carry. That's just not going to get it done. Now, I've heard the arguments they've increased, they've upped their offensive line. They've kind of built that up a little bit. He is now the lead role. There's no question about it. I think Giovanni Bernard will be a third down sort of, third passing down back or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I don't buy Joe Mixon. I watched a bunch of his games last year. I wasn't impressed. I mean, I could definitely be wrong. It's his second year. Maybe he does break out, but I'm not wasting a high pick on him if I'm doing a dynasty league or if I'm doing a redraft league. I'm just not going to waste a high pick on him. If he falls down, if I can get him later in the rounds, possibly, but I'm not wasting a second round pick on him for sure.
Completely agree.
All right, the next guy I got up here, again, going into his second year, they added quite a bit of weapons around him. They sort of set him up for success here, and that's quarterback Mitch Trubisky for the Chicago Bears. What do you think of him? Breakout or fake out?
Once again, Jeff, fake out. And I'm going to tell you why. And the only reason I say this is because of the division he's in. He's got some tough defenses to go against. And obviously one defense I'm looking at already is the Minnesota Vikings. Keep in mind, he's still going to go up against Green Bay. I just think that division is going to be a little bit too tough for him. And I don't think Chicago, for one, I'm assuming they're going to be a run-happy offense as well with Howard in the backfield. That guy's a monster. But I still don't think Chicago's got all the puzzles, all the pieces to the puzzle of their team. I think Trubisky's going to need some more help. He's probably going to need a couple more years. I see a lot of reports that people are thinking Chicago is going to go 3-3 or 8-8. I don't see that at all. I don't know about you, but I got them right around maybe 5-11 or 6-10. I just see like a mediocre season. I don't really. I mean, I think I drafted him actually in our dynasty. Well, that already tells you what his success. But yeah, I don't know, man. Just last year 4-8 played. He had 12 games, 2,100 yards. But I just think that whole division's going to get better. They're going to improve, and I think the Bears are just going to be the Bears are just going to be the same. So yeah, I don't see him getting better at all.
Yeah, I think the way I view him right now, I think he'll be a better NFL quarterback, but he won't be a great fantasy quarterback. I think Chicago they got plenty of weapons around him. I think they're going to sort of limit his exposure, so to speak. They're not going to make him pass the ball 50 times a game. They're going to run the ball with Jordan Howard. They'll get the ball out to Allen Robinson quite a bit in some short passes. I just think that from a fantasy point of view, he's just not going to put up the kind of numbers you want for a fantasy quarterback. I think NFL quarterback, I think he may have a decent season. I agree, 8-8 is probably where I got them as well. I don't think he'll be terrible. I think he'll be a good second-year quarterback, but not the one I want for my fantasy squad. Unless I'm playing Dynasty, I might go ahead and pick him up, expecting him to be good, maybe year 3 or year 4.
Absolutely, completely agree.
All right, the next one I got up on this list, I put here just for you, actually, because I know you caught some heat for this trade that you made mid-season last year. Wide receiver Marquise Lee in Jacksonville with Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns both gone now. He's the de facto number 1 receiver there. It's a running team there, but what do you think of Marquise Lee?
Oh man, did I get the hatred spilled on me for this move? And I'm telling you what, the jinx always strikes, but I still love my move. I still love my decision. I think he's going to be the guy. I really do. He definitely showed signs of huge breakout. I read like a crazy statistic before that Blake Bortles is passing the ball like 3 times as more as he was before. Now that he's got Marquise Lee in that system, I think next year, man, you guys are going to be kind of jealous, and I might get a few people offering some trades for this guy. There's a reason he re-signed to a 4-year deal. He's their top wideout right now. He got hurt in week 15, but I mean, he was averaging five catches a game, about 62 yards, 8 targets per game as well. So, they're going to keep looking to this guy. And when I look around on that offense, the only other receiver I think that can even come close to battling him for that position right now is Dede Westbrook. So I'm all over Lee, man. If Bortles can have another good season, Bortles started to catch fire there in the playoffs toward the end of the year. Hopefully that wasn't really fluky, but get Leonard Fournette to push those linebackers back and make some room for Marquise Lee, man. I'm all about this offense in general. I mean, I'm not so far as going to drafting Bortles. That'll never happen. But I'm a huge fan. I see a lot of potential in Lee, and I'm standing by it.
All right. I gotta say, I don't buy the hype over him. I think he'll be a good receiver. I don't know if I would have given up what you've given up. I don't remember the exact specifics of the trade, but I know that for me on paper, it didn't look that good. One thing I will say, just to sort of go over this whole jinx thing, I want to just kind of put it out there. So Shane trades away. Part of that trade with Marquise Lee involved Carson Wentz. And I was talking to Shane in a separate window, and I was talking about him trading away Carson Wentz to the other person he traded him to. And he has Deshaun Watson. He's like, man, as long as he stays healthy, I'll be good. So he immediately goes out for the year. And then, of course, Carson Wentz is the guy that he traded, also goes out for the year. So Shane sort of jinxed both of those quarterbacks. So if you owned him last year, I'm sorry. Shane had him, so he kind of ruined both of those guys.
And here's the thing, Jeff, because the jinx works in mysterious ways. See, I think this jinx actually worked out in my favor, because what ended up happening with that Philadelphia team when Carson Wentz went out? Yeah, Nick Foles beat the evil empire and won a Super Bowl. And where did he do it? He did it in Philly. So for all you Carson Wentz owners out there, when he comes back and has 2 bad games, he's going to get booed off the field. People are going to throw stuff at him. They're going to be screaming for Foles. So good luck, Wentz owners, because this guy, I'm telling you right now, his whole demeanor and everything about him, his confidence is just through the ground, because Philly fans they're going to be ruthless to this guy. Because I mean, think about it. It's Philly. They just won a champion. They just won a Super Bowl. That's what they're going to expect out of Wentz. It's not going to happen. So
strong words there. Strong words, especially for a guy that was having an MVP season last year before he got injured. So But you're right. I mean, if he comes in and he's struggling the first few games, I don't think he's going to start the season. I think he would still be injured. But I think if he comes in and struggles those first few games, and they're looking at him like, okay, we were a Super Bowl team last year without you. There might be some controversy there. I don't see it happening. I think Carson Wentz is the real deal. But you never know. This injury could linger a little bit, and maybe he comes back too soon, and so you never know what's going to happen. All right, let's move on to the next one I got on here. A running back in Miami that sort of got the lead role towards the end of the season, had a couple breakout games there. Going into this year, he's pretty hyped up, and that's running back Kenyon Drake. Is he a breakout or a fake out?
I'm going to have to go fake out. For one, I drafted him, and he did absolutely – or no, did you draft him? I can't remember what happened, but he ended up on my team.
At one point, you had him. Yep, I own him now, but at one point, you did own him.
Okay. At one point, I had him. Well, there's another funny statistic that I caught yesterday when I looked over at Kenyon, and we have the same birthday. So
no,
this guy has the same birthday as the Jinx.
Not good.
Yeah, you might want to be careful about that. January 26th. So, the Jinx plays in mysterious ways. We know this with Watson and Wentz just alone. That's an example. But no. I'm gonna say fake out. I don't think the Dolphins are gonna find that running back ever since Ajayi left. I really do not see it happening. Nothing really screams all-star in this kid. Looking over the stats last year in 16 games, he only had 3 touchdowns. His longest rush was 66 yards. He averaged 4.8, which isn't bad, more than Mixon. But I don't see it. I don't see it. I just can't. For one thing, Miami, I think they're another team that's still kind of trying to find themselves as well. I mean, this guy is going to get overshadowed when it comes to fantasy purposes. This is a guy that's going to sit on your bench next year, and that's just my opinion.
All right, I'm going to go the opposite way on this one as well. I think Kenyon Drake, just based on volume alone, will be a fantasy. He won't be a stud, but he'll be good enough to fill in for bye weeks or injuries, just because the volume he's got there. I mean, the only guy he's competing with there is a 137-year-old Frank Gore, so he doesn't have any competition as far as carries. I mean, Frank Gore will get his, but I think he's I think he's legit 37 years old for a running back that's ancient. So I think Drake gets the starting nod, gets the volume. The Dolphins are going to want to run the ball at least a little bit with Tannehill coming back off a season-ending injury. I think Drake, just based on volume alone, will be a good running back for your running back 4, running back 5 on your bench. So I'll go breakout there, a slight breakout, not really a breakout like we would hope to have in fantasy football, but I'll go with a slight breakout on Kenyon Drake. All right, the next guy I got on my list is another guy that I actually own, and that's he's now the lead back in Tennessee. DeMarco Murray left there, so now we've got Derrick Henry. They did sign Dion Lewis as a free agent, so they got him there as a third down back. Derrick Henry is now the lead dog there. Breakout or fake out for Derrick Henry?
Oh, absolute breakout, man. It was a breakout last year. This guy's a stud. You're looking at a guy who, like you said, and one thing you got to look at, and you kind of pinpointed it, our last player we were talking about with Kenyon Drake, is he's got no competition. No one's going to compete against him. He's already got over 1,200 yards in 2 seasons for his career, 10 touchdowns. Still has plenty of potential at 24 years old. This is somebody that I think, in all honesty, depending on how you feel about, Saquon Barkley or even Darius Geis, who we'll get to later, this is somebody you definitely want starting for your running back, for your roster, and especially in your dynasty leagues. 100% breakout, one of my favorite running backs on the board. Wish I had him. I'm all about Derrick Henry, without a doubt.
Definitely. I actually made a trade for him previous to this year, so I actually had him last year on my bench, but I traded away C.J. Anderson for him. I'm kind of loving that trade now because Anderson now has been cut by the Broncos and re-signed with the Panthers, but I was counting on that to happen eventually. I thought it would happen last year sooner, but DeMarco Murray just kept sticking around. So finally, Derrick Henry, a year after I traded for him, will now hopefully get his shot. So I'm hoping that he's a breakout as well. All right, the next one I got on here is the Bucs wide receiver has been in the news recently as far as him being mentioned as earning the starting job. Now, whether that means earning the starting job in the slot or that means on the outside, but that's Chris Godwin of the Bucs. He's got Deshaun Jackson in front of him, who didn't have a very good year last year. Godwin kind of plays that same role as Deshaun Jackson. So if he gets that number 2 spot, I think he's got some value. But what do you think of Chris Godwin? Breakout or fake out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because as of late, they're thinking that he's gonna be stealing a lot of snaps this season. So you look at his last year's stats: 34 receptions, 500 yards. You mentioned Deshaun Jackson. I mean, even as a Redskins fan, I think Deshaun's coming. I think he's coming to the end of his career. Obviously, he's still explosive, has a speed as well, but
can't stay healthy.
We got to look at how. Say that again.
Can't stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly. He can't stay healthy. And, you also got Adam Humphries there, and obviously their all-star Mike Evans. But, yeah, I mean, I'm hearing reports now that they're looking at him as, like, the number 2 wide receiver, which it may happen because as far as receiving core goes, I can only imagine as such a young player, you end up on a team full of just old veterans. Like that's your dream, right? You want to get drafted to a team that is looking to rebuild or has a bunch of stubborn vets that, almost get too comfortable in this league thinking they're not going to lose their job. And then out of nowhere, this guy Godwin comes in and, he might be playing the number 2. So I'm going to say breakout. I think he's got potential, and when you got somebody like Mike Evans on the other side of the field hogging up all the defensive backs in these zone Ds, it's definitely going to leave him open, especially if he's going to work that slot.
Definitely. All right, so the next one I have on my list, and I don't know how true this is, but somebody on Facebook Live just asked about him and said that he's out for the year with an ACL injury. I have yet to hear that news. It could be it's unconfirmed, but that's tight end Hunter Henry. Assuming that he's not out for the year, is it a breakout or a fake out?
I haven't actually. Yeah, you're 7 minutes. The jinx works in mysterious ways. This is just reported 7 minutes ago that I'm looking at. Suffers torn ACL during OTAs. So
I guess we can say he's a fake out for sure. He ain't breaking out this year.
Yeah, Adam Schefter literally just tweeted this out, Jeff. So.
All right, there you go. Breaking news right here on the podcast. Hunter Henry's out for the year with an ACL injury. We had him on the list. Shane already jinxed him.
And get this. He did it during a drill, running downfield untouched.
Oh, that's the worst.
He did this by himself.
That's the worst.
Let's see what happens when you put these guys' names in front of me.
I wish now I hadn't put so many guys that I own on my dynasty on this list, because the next guy on my list, man, I'm nervous to even say his name right now. That's quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, of my beloved 49ers. Shane, please don't jinx him. Is he a breakout or a fake out?
Jimmy Grapes. Oh man. Well, Jeff, you already know what I'm going to say, and I can't lie. I can't lie on your podcast here. But I mean, look what he did last year. Of course, he's going to be a breakout. Was Aaron Rodgers a breakout when he sat for Favre that long? Of course he was. Garoppolo's going to be the same way. You've got a quarterback who's literally been sitting on the bench soaking up information. He's literally just learned everything from Belichick and Brady. He's definitely proven himself, and now he's going to have a full season with training camp. Come on, Jeff. You know that's going to be a breakout. It's not even a question.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm kind of tempering my expectations a little bit because I think coaches will have film on him now. They can prepare for him a little bit more. But at the same time, I watched every snap of his last year. I think his numbers could have been even better. We had a bunch of dumb penalties down in the red zone. A few of them were called back touchdowns that he threw that weren't really his fault, that were just dumb penalties. So his numbers could have been even better than they were. And I think, we saw how good he was. I think that everyone on Facebook right now is sort of crushing me right now because it's my team and you just jinxed him. But I think he'll have a good season. He got some good pieces around him. We did pretty good in the draft. We got some protection for him. I think getting Jerrick McKinnon will help our offense as well, and I think our receivers will be decent enough. We don't have anybody dominant, but I think we got some guys good enough around him that he can have a breakout season. All right, the next one on my list, another tight end. Hopefully we don't get him out for the year as well, but that's tight end Trey Burton. Of course, now with the Chicago Bears, he's there with Mitch Trubisky. One of those weapons that they added for Mitch Trubisky up there. What do you think of Trey Burton?
Yeah, and this is another player too. I spoke about when I was mentioning about the Bears earlier. Let's think. So Trey Burton, he came from this Philly offense with, playing alongside like Zach Ertz. And, obviously this is going to be a spot for him where he gets to shine. So I honestly like this guy in Florida. I got a chance to watch quite a few games with him. He's a very, very athletic guy, especially for a bigger guy. But it comes back to what is going to be the dynamic of the Chicago Bears team. That's what we need to see. He hasn't really done anything too impressive. That's because he hasn't really been in the spotlight. But this will be his chance to shine. This is going to come down to Trubisky. It really is, because we got to see what kind of offense they're going to be running. Is Burton going to be more of like a blocking tight end, or are they going to let him do his thing? Because if I'm looking at this Bears offense right now, you got a speedy Kevin White on the outside. They're going to be relying on Howard quite a bit, and they're not. I don't see them being comfortable enough to just kind of let Trubisky just go wild. There's a lot of questions involving this offense. It's hard to predict how any of these guys are going to play. But if I'm coaching the Chicago Bears starting game one, I'm literally going to be like 75% run game, because you know what you have in Howard. You still don't know what you have in Trubisky. I'm sorry, you just don't. And Burton, that's going to rely a lot on Burton too. So if they're going to be doing like some play action little dump passes here and there, you're going to get, especially in your points per catch leagues, this might be a good play. But this isn't something that, I'm going to start tight end week one and be happy about. I mean, for a dynasty or a fantasy league, he'll be riding my bench without a doubt in all fantasy purposes. It's not even close.
Fair enough. I actually like Trey Burton quite a bit. I think he'll be the red zone guy. I think he'll be sort of the outlet for Mitch Trubisky. The easiest pass for a quarterback to make is the pass over the middle, and I think with with him being a tight end, being a bigger guy, being athletic, I think that he'll be sort of that security blanket for Mitch Trubisky, and I think he can rack up some PPR points. Trey Burton, to me, I think is probably a sleeper tight end if, just outside the top 10. I think if you can get him, late in drafts, I think he'll be a steal for sure. Sticking with the tight end theme, we'll go once again back to San Francisco with one of my guys, George Kittle. Had a pretty good rookie season, and coming into this year is the favorite to lead the team as far as receptions from the tight end position. We did have a few guys there last year that sort of competed with him, but going into this year, he is the de facto number one receiver there as far as the tight ends go. What do you think of George Kittle? Breakout or fake out?
I'd have to go breakout. They finally got the quarterback that, will get him the ball. Another very, very young player. This guy's 6'5", if I'm not mistaken.
He's
I don't
a big
have it in
guy,
front of me. But I want to say he's 6'5" or 6'6" from what I read. But no, he already had over 500 yards last season. He's very well proven. I don't know exactly how many touchdowns he had with Jimmy Grapes. I want to say it's like maybe one or two. He didn't have a lot, but I think he's going to be. I think he's going. So let's date back to what I just said about Trey Burton. I think with this Niners offense, we know what to expect out of Garoppolo. We basically saw what kind of offense this is going to be. So this is going to be your guy that's going to be. I think you're going to see downfield a lot more. He's going to be using that height. He's going to be great for fade routes, which Jimmy Grapes does really well. So I could see this guy being a breakout. This is somebody I would definitely love to have on my team. And he produced solid numbers last year for his sample size. He produced a lot of good numbers. He's definitely a threat. He's got that height. That's what I like. I like very tall tight ends. Do a little out route here and there. But I mean, when it comes to fantasy, what do we like to do, especially as a daily fantasy player? You love to handcuff your players. You love to take that quarterback, handcuff it to your tight end, handcuff it to your wide receiver. This is gonna. I look at this like a FanDuel DraftKings, maybe like a low-owned Jimmy Grapes, George Kittle handcuff, and I definitely wouldn't hate it at all. You'll get it low-owned and definitely rack some points up. But I'm all about Kittle, so definitely breakout.
All right, so you've done ruined two of my guys on my team. Let's talk about one of your players on your Redskins.
Not on purpose.
Let's talk about wide receiver Josh Doctson. We've been predicting this guy doing a breakout for the last few years. Hasn't quite happened. Had a much better season last year, but still not what we expect from him. What do you think of Josh Doctson this year with Alex Smith under center?
It's just, Jeff, being a Redskin fan, it's always hearing reports like, oh, is Doctson hurt? Oh, how are they going to implement him in the offense? Why is Doctson having catching issues? All right, so obviously we know Doctson is the most athletic freak of nature the Redskins have had a wide receiver in a very long time. This guy definitely has a vertical of no other. He's a huge threat, but a lot of what's going to come down to his production is how healthy is Jordan Reed going to be? And I'm saying that with all honesty. I obviously am a diehard Redskins fan. Jordan Reed being out changes the whole dynamic of the Washington Redskins. Now we've drafted Darius Geis, who obviously will be our clear favorite at running back. Don't even know we're gonna do a P Ryan yet. Rob Kelly, I don't even know if he's got cut yet. He probably will get cut. He's out of the picture. I'm not even gonna analyze the whole Redskins team, but how this team works is it comes down to the weapons first. We know this. We got rid of Kirk. We let him walk, and we brought in Smith. We factor this team around the weapons that are around them. And when Jordan Reed comes back healthy, I still think Jordan Reed will be the best player on our team. He's the biggest threat as long as he can, with these concussions, the guy just has to stay on his feet. But one thing I will say is I think Doxson will improve this year, and I only say that even if Reed's healthy, I think he'll improve because honestly, I'm a huge fan of Alex Smith's deep ball. I think Alex Smith's going to have a much better deep ball. He's going to take a lot more chances than Kirk. One thing about Kirk, and this is my opinion, not really factual, but I think Kirk cared about his name brand a little bit too much, cared about his stats. I think he was a little scared to take chances because it would ruin his stats. Alex Smith doesn't care about image. He doesn't even have a Twitter. He doesn't even have a Facebook. So he just goes out and plays football. And I think you're going to see a lot more bombs being thrown to Doxson because Alex Smith's going to come in there pretending he has those threats from Kansas City, which he obviously doesn't. But he's going to look at guys like Doxson. He's going to look at explosive, fast wide receivers. So I think you're going to see an uptick in Doxson's stats. Not by much, but I think you will.
All right. That's got to be a fantasy football first. We're analyzing a guy, whether or not he has Twitter and Facebook. So mark it down. If the first time it ever happened here on the podcast is Shane just mentioned someone's Facebook and Twitter as being a fantasy relevant stat.
I'm telling you, Jeff, it's huge. I look into stuff like this. It's big. Hey, and not to make the show longer, but I'm saying one thing right now. RG3, what do we know? His name brand. That's all. That's what ran his career in DC. And what do we know about Kirk Cousins? You like that. What was that? It was a name brand.
Yep.
That's all he cared about. Alex Smith, we don't know nothing. All we know is he works his ass off, and he doesn't care about that public image. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right, fair enough. All right, so let's see. We've jinxed my players. We've jinxed some of your players. We've jinxed a good friend of ours, Dolphins players. I got one more player here I want to jinx. It's a friend of ours, also in our Dynasty League. He's a Chiefs fan. We're going to go with quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who now takes over for Alex Smith. And everyone's predicting he's going to be the next big thing there in Kansas City. They got rid of Alex Smith because of him. What do you think of Patrick Mahomes?
So, I mean, how lucky can you get, right? I mean, he's got one of the most explosive offenses in all of football that Alex Smith basically just handed over to him. I think he'll be fine. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but was I hearing reports that was he hurt? I don't know. This might be like false information, but it might have been during OTAs or something. Like they said he wasn't acting right. That's what I heard on the radio, but I could be wrong. But no, man. I think he's going to be fine. He started one game last year? It was the last game versus the Broncos.
Last game of the season, yep.
Yeah, last game of the season versus Broncos. I remember watching that actually. And obviously it's a very, very small sample size, but I think he's going to be fine. I honestly do. He's got so many weapons there. What more could you ask for? He's got one of the best running backs in the league, one of the best, speediest receivers. He's got Kareem Hunt back there, obviously with Tyreek Hill. Not to mention Travis Kelce. I mean, honestly,
he's got Andy Reid as his coach.
Right, exactly. So this is going to be, and I'm letting all you daily fantasy players know right now, this is going to be a guy who's like a little bit above min price on FanDuel that is going to be so chalky. It's going to be insane because all this guy is really going to have to do is just run that offense. He's got all the weapons around him. How can you screw this up? Like, how can you screw this up?
I'll tell you how you can screw it up. Have Shane Clawson come on a podcast and talk about you like that. That's how you screw it up. Fair
enough. But I don't even know if that can do it, Jeff. Like, I really don't. I just don't. But no, I'm actually I'm a fan of his. I think he's got a strong arm. That Kansas City will be fine. If anything, man, he'll probably improve. I mean, I hear a lot of Kansas City fans. It's funny because I think it was Brandon actually. I think it was Brandon. I heard it other places too, but they said, man, the Kansas City Chiefs just got better on offense and defense with one trade because we got rid of Smith and we could finally use Mahomes, and now we're getting Kendall Fuller at the slot on defense, and that might be true. I'll be honest, it might be true.
That's a good point.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look at some of these rookies from this year. Of course, everything's made of all these running backs are taken. They're all pretty much being drafted high in the fantasy drafts and dynasty drafts. But let's look at outside of Saquon Barkley, which running back out of this year's crop of rookies has the best chance to finish in the top 10 outside of Saquon Barkley?
I mean, Jeff, you already know what I'm going to say.
That's why I put this one on here, man.
You know who I'm going to say. And honestly, even if he wasn't on the Redskins, I mean, I'm still going to say him. But it's Darius Geis. I know, Redskins fans. I apologize.
They all hate you right now, Shane.
Look, this is what I'm going to say right now. This is what I'm going to say. And to any of you Giants fans out there, listen up. What did we see in college? There's a huge difference between Darius and Saquon. Saquon in college, don't get me wrong. A lot of you, I'm gonna tell you guys one thing. There's a kid, Hilton High School. I saw him play live by the name of Ricky Slade. Penn State commit. Penn State has great running backs. They produce great running backs. They just do. But one thing about Saquon is I felt he had a very easy time in college. Very, very strong guy. I felt he's more of like a power back to me than Darius is. But and Darius is, don't get me wrong, they're both power backs.
Right.
But I feel like Darius is just going to have an easier time in the NFL. I do. I just think Darius, obviously Saquon, better stats, everything else. He's the higher pick. We get that. But I feel that Darius is going to adapt better. I don't see. I think Saquon will have an okay year. And by the way, how stacked is the NFC East right now in running backs? That's just ridiculous.
Agreed.
But I feel like Darius is going to have that breakaway speed that you need. I honestly, look, I'm calling it right now. I think Darius will have more touchdowns than Saquon will. I don't even think it's going to be close.
Wow, bold statement right there.
Bold, very bold, very bold. I know, but I feel Darius got a little overlooked. I really do, and I think it's gonna bite. It's really gonna bite the Giants in the ass. You got to go Barkley, obviously. I get it. But you're about to see the true running back of the draft. It will be Darius Geis. He will be the Redskins starting running back right behind Alex Smith, and he's going to set the world on fire. So get ready.
All right, well, you just made a certain somebody in our Dynasty League very happy because you poo-pooed Saquon Barkley and then hyped up Darius Geis. He has the number one pick in our rookie draft, so he's on Facebook Live right now, loving everything you're saying right now. So unfortunately, he's also a Redskins fan, so I don't know how he feels about that. Maybe he cares more about his fancy team than he does his real team, but I could see your jinx coming through there and having Saquon Barkley have a big season and getting Darius Geis hurt.
We'll see. But I mean, I'll say it right now. Outside of Geis, I like the Geis pick as a Redskins fan. I was one of the guys that came on. I hated the draft at first, which it took me a while to really analyze everything. But I'm a huge believer in defense. I love Daron Payne. Don't get me wrong. Our linebackers are insane right now. I'm still a little skeptical of our secondary. I wanted to really go secondary heavy first because it's a passing league. I think that kind of got overshadowed. But hopefully this makes up for it. My whole question is like, okay, well, what about P. Ryan? Are we just going to give up on this guy? Because it's the Redskins front office. I feel like they don't really give players time to progress. We know that. As DC sports fans, we know that. But that's kind of where that was coming from. But as an overall player, obviously, I like him. He's a beast. I mean,
fair enough.
It just is what it is.
All right, let's look at the receivers now. A couple guys with some big names. A couple of them have some bad landing spots. Which receiver has the best chance to land in the top 10 this year at the wide receiver class?
All right. So obviously there's one name I think that's going to stick out more than the rest, and it's because of the receivers, or not just the receivers, but the quarterback that's around him. You've got one of the, if not the best, wide receiver in the draft out of Alabama falling to the Falcons. Let's just put that in perspective. You've already got Matty Ice with Julio Jones on the opposite side of you, and now you're getting the best receiver in Calvin Ridley, which some may argue DJ Moore. I get it. But, Jeff, let me ask you something. If you were to start a team today, would you want Ridley alongside Julio with Matty Ice in the backfield? Or would you want DJ Moore with Funches, an old man Torrey Smith, and Cam Newton in the backfield.
If I'm starting an NFL team, I'll take that first option. Fantasy team, I might go with DJ Moore just because he's going to get so many targets.
Correct. And I completely agree with you. But to answer your question, I honestly think it's not even close. And, overall, Calvin Ridley. It just is what it is. He had over 1,000. I mean, going into 2015 at over 1,000 yards, kind of regressed in 2016. He had 769. 2017, almost 1,000. He had 967. But consistency's key. He's always had consistency. He always averaged over 10 yards a catch. This is everything and more that the Falcons wanted out of a receiver. And now they just completed that offense, in my opinion. That offense is going to be ridiculous next year, especially if he lives up to his name. He's in a veteran ran, with, like I said, I've already mentioned with Matt Ryan and Julio. It's just a veteran ran offense. The Falcons are always consistent. They're always in the playoffs. This is going to do nothing but boost them up. So obviously overall, I'd have to say Calvin Ridley.
Fair enough. I think I'd go more personally. I think Ridley's going to be overshadowed a little bit with Julio Jones. They still got Mohamed Sanu. They got two good running backs. Ridley just won't get the volume, I don't think, to be fantasy relevant, at least, from a perspective of being top 10. I think Moore steps right into that starting role. I think Torrey Smith takes the bench spot, basically. I think after getting Moore, I think they view Moore as a Steve Smith type player where they can just give him multiple targets. I think year one, now maybe long term, Ridley has the upside that you're looking for in a receiver. He is the most NFL ready receiver that's out there right now as far as rookies go. So maybe, long term, he does sort of take over that role. But I think if we're talking year one, I think I'm going to put Moore as my top 10 receiver.
Well, I'll say this. Okay, I'm going to counter that real quick. If you want to go off upside, I'll tell you, you got to start looking at other. If you want to go upside, I think we have to go back to that theory that you want to get drafted to a team that has veterans and the team's looking to kind of shift to a new name. So I'm thinking of Dante Pettis with San Fran. I mean, who do they have over there? Pierre Garçon. And, you guys got a good one over there, right? Marquise Goodwin. And I'm also looking at Cortland Sutton. I mean, yeah, the Broncos, obviously Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. I understand that. I get it. But he's going to make a name for himself, too, because he's overall one of the best wide receivers that came out of the draft. I think he's got a huge upside.
Agreed.
He got overlooked because he went to SMU. So you're going to see this kid, definitely make some noise. Especially with his size. This guy is freaking massive. So
there's another guy I wanted to bring up too that could have some good top 10 potential, and that's Michael Gallup from Dallas. With Des Bryant gone, he steps into that. He can be the starter there, and if he can get some chemistry with Dak Prescott, I think that he can be a top 10 receiver as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not that I hope that happens, but yeah, I agree.
All right, quickly before we go to commercial break, because we are running a little long here, give me a few of your top buy low, sell high. So, guys that you want to buy now that are sort of overlooked, or someone you want to sell if you've got them on your team right now.
So could this be anybody like veterans or
anybody at all? If you're right now in your dynasty off season, looking at your squad, you either want to improve by going and buying somebody low or trying to sell someone you have that might not be good in the next year or two.
I mean, right now you want to buy Josh Gordon. Honestly, that's the first name I can think of when you say that. I think this guy, especially now with Cleveland, basically in shambles right now. Obviously, they got Mayfield, but I don't think Mayfield. Do you think he'll start week one?
I don't think he'll start week one, but I think he'll be started before the end of the season.
Yeah, no. If that's the case, he'll probably be started by like week 4, week 5. That's a given. We see it all the time, Jeff. We always hear that. We're always like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to bench him for the first year, and we'll analyze them. I mean, look at Deshaun Watson, Jeff. He came in. How many weeks did he come in? I mean, it's going to happen.
He came in the third quarter of the very first game. I think that what's his name, Savage, played literally a half, and they put in Deshaun Watson after the half.
Oh wow, okay. I thought it was game 2 or 3. Wow.
Nope.
Okay, well, that's going to be another example because that's just the kind of front office that the Browns have. That's the kind of coaching the Browns have. So I think when Mayfield comes in, that's definitely going to help out. I could see that definitely helping out. The Gordon. But another guy too that I want to say is you definitely have to look at Jordy Nelson. I think him finding a new home. I'm still a huge Derek Carr fan, and he's already got a few other weapons over there that tagged along with him. I think Jordy Nelson's definitely someone I would buy into as well. So those are definitely two guys that I'm without a doubt going to try to target.
Fair enough.
Yep. So I would definitely go there. But okay, so your sell guys is I think you need to really look at this draft and how it's going to impact a lot of these vets. Who do we just mention over with your wide receiver that you guys drafted? Now you got to start looking at guys like Pierre Garçon that there's no use for these kind of that are number one receivers who are just going to get the spotlight taken from them.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the Tampa Bay situation going on now with Goodwin, now you got to look at guys like Deshaun. Like, wait, do I have Deshaun who I plan on starting as maybe a wide receiver slot 3 or 4, and now he's going to be losing carries as a Goodwin? Like, this is kind of as like a dynasty player and as a fantasy player, things you have to analyze. This is why drafts are so important, because like even with our dynasty league, like, even though that, we have plenty of guys in our league that aren't really going to be making a lot of picks, but you got to realize that a lot of these picks are going to affect your team regardless.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Teams are going to be, their whole structure is going to change with one draft pick, and that's just how it's going to be. Teams are trying to find themselves. Every year we see like, it's funny you guys joke with me, but I mentioned the whole Blake Bortles, Marquise Lee thing. That might be their dynamic next year. I'm just saying, I'm gonna keep bringing it up. Screenshot it. That's all I gotta say. That might be their dynamic. They might be pass heavy now. Obviously with Leonard Fournette, we get it. Yeah, he's gonna be the all-star running back. He'll be fine. But Lee and Bortles start clicking, then you've got Fournette who's losing out on a lot of touchdowns. You got to analyze things like that. You really got to. You can't, especially with daily fantasy, man. You can't miss out on these touchdowns. So
definitely,
that's just kind of how I look at it. So I'd like to just go through every team, look at their new structure, and just kind of figure out and go from there. That's all I can really say.
Definitely.
I don't really have any selling points right now, but my buying points are, like I said, my number 1's Josh Gordon. Mine's number 2, even though he's old. And I know it's your wife's favorite player. Well, maybe not anymore, but I'm a fan. I like Jordy Nelson over with the Raiders.
Fair enough. I got one player I want to mention. I originally had him as a sell high towards the beginning of the offseason. And now I have him as a sell. As a sell high. I had him as a sell high in the beginning of the season. Now I have him as a buy low. And that's Mark Ingram. I actually sold him high early in the off season, thinking that, he's a little bit older guy. He's got Alvin Kamara there that's going to take over the lead role eventually. I think Ingram had, 1, maybe 2 more good years there. He's a free agent after next year. He may not be with the Saints next year. So I sold him high a few weeks ago, but now I think he's a buy low because of the suspension. His value is dropped to almost nothing. If you could get him as your RB4, RB5 on your bench for a very little price, I think you go out and do that, because once he comes back, he's still a big part of the offense. He'll still be their red zone guy. And the Saints, the way they run their offense is once that running back is on the field, if their offense is moving, that running back does not leave the field. So it's not like they switch him out, when they get towards the red zone. They just basically, whoever's on the field at that time, if they're driving down the field, or it's a 70-yard drive, 80-yard drive, that running back stays on the field for the most part because they do a hurry-up offense and they don't want to switch out guys. So I think Ingram still has value, and now that he's got this four-game suspension, I think that you can go out and get him for almost nothing and help your team down the stretch run there after he comes back from his suspension.
Yeah, no, completely agree. That's a good point. It's funny, I was actually going to tackle on Ingram, but I know we're going to be talking about him in a little bit, so maybe after the break.
All right, let me let's go to commercial break, and when we come back, we'll have some more with Shane.
3 shows, 1 podcast. The Talk Loud Radio podcast combines sports, nerds, and pop culture with the Pay Me No Mind Show. Just down-to-earth sports and entertainment. The Clash of the Nerds Let's Podcast Show. The latest movies and video games with a dash of comedy. And the Armchair Fantasy Show. 8. Sleep Fantasy Sports. Find Talk Loud Radio on all the major podcast services like iTunes and Stitcher at talkloudradio.com and streaming on the Going for Two app for iOS and Android. Talk Loud Radio, where sports, nerds, and pop culture collide.
Do you need advice for your fantasy football team? How about your DraftKings or FanDuel lineup? GoingFor2.com has you covered. GoingFor2.com has exclusive content from some of the best fantasy writers in the industry, whose credentials include Bleacher Report, Fantasy Pros, and Fantasy Life. From advice columns to player ranks, GoingFor2.com has it all. Sign up for our newsletter to have all of our content sent to your inbox. Start winning today. Visit GoingFor2.com, because no one remembers the extra point.
Step into a world where there's no one left but the very best. No MC can tell.
All right, welcome back. Again, we are here with Shane Clawson, a.k.a. Nostra-Dumbass. He is the Jinx. He comes on the show quite often. Glad to have him on the show once again, talking some fantasy football. All right, Shane, you ready to do a little bit of over and under?
Let's get it.
All right, so basically this is how this is going to work. I'm going to give you a receiver or a running back or a quarterback and give you an over-under scenario. You tell me what you're going to take and why you're taking that scenario. Starting off with Antonio Brown. Mike, I see you there. You're a Steelers fan. I see you on Facebook Live watching this, so we're about to jinx your boy. Antonio Brown, over under a top 3 wide receiver for this season.
I mean, you got to stay over. And I'm not even trying to jinx him, but I mean, let's be honest. Antonio Brown is one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the league. And it sucks to say this because I was that unlucky fan at FedEx when Antonio Brown did his famous twerk in the end zone after catching that heartbreaking touchdown. It was a blowout regardless. But, I mean, he is what he is. And business is apparently booming. I hate that, by the way. He should just get rid of that slogan. But, yeah, he's definitely going to be a top 3.
All right, I agree. I think top 3. I think he might be 3. But I think he will be in the top 3. I think Hopkins could be up there. I think Julio might make a bounce back season after last year. Odell Beckham with the full season might take that top 2. But I think Antonio Brown at worst is a top 3 receiver. He could be the number 1 again this year for all we know. All right, the next guy on this list, he's like 39 years old, 38 years old, still top of his game right now. I've been sort of expecting his downfall over the last couple of years, and he keeps, throwing egg in my face, and that's quarterback Tom Brady, over under top 5 quarterback this year.
Jeff, there's things that we all learn in life. 1 is we're all going to die. 2 is we pay taxes. 3 is I am a jinx. Wait, so there's 4. 4, as long as LeBron James is still in the NBA and Tom Brady is still in the NFL, they will continue to be one of, if not the best at what they do. We're seeing this from LeBron. Obviously, he's carrying a bunch of high school basketball players on his back to a championship, and we have seen Brady carry that team on his back to winning Super Bowls. So as long as Tom Brady's in the league, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, like I said, last 2 years I've kind of put him, towards the bottom of the top 10, thinking that, okay, this is the year that he has his Peyton Manning season where he's not that, great of a quarterback towards the end. Maybe he's still decent enough to make it, get by. But he's proven me wrong, so I'm not going to bet against him this year. I think he is a top 5 quarterback again this year. So I won't bet against him, which means hopefully he will be finally, on those last leg. We'll see what happens. All right, the next one I got here is a guy that had a huge rookie season. Actually ended the season as the number 1 rookie running back in the NFL as far as fantasy goes. But everyone's kind of saying that he can't maintain that production. So over under Alvin Kamara, a top 5 running back.
Well, I mean, now we have to go back to Ingram's suspension. So he's going to get a ton of carries when Ingram's out, and it's going to give him a boost. I mean, obviously, when we're looking at running backs, we have to look at the teams with the one running back committee. And for a while, one of the most explosive offenses in the league is going to have that. So I guess that kind of depends on what we're going to see in Breeze. Or with him getting older, are we going to go more run happy? Kamara's a beast. We know this. So if he gets this head start and their offense is booming, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I am. And obviously we got to look around. We got these rookie running backs coming in, but I think I'm gonna have to say yes.
All right. I think I'm going to go under. I think he is top 10, but top 5 might be a little bit much because we're going to have a full season with Ezekiel Elliott, assuming he doesn't get in kind of trouble again. We're going to have David Johnson coming back from injury. We're going to have Todd Gurley still going to be there. There's going to be, Le'Veon Bell still out there. It's going to be hard for me to put him in the top 5. I will put him in the top 10. But as far as top 5 goes, I'm going to go under on him as well. All right. The next one I got is pretty much a shoe-in every year to be the top tight end. He's constantly dealing with injuries, though. So at the end of the season, his numbers don't look quite as good. His per-game numbers have been really good, but he can't finish seasons. So I'm going to go over-under Gronkowski as a top 2 tight end.
Well, Jeff, I would honestly put, and I'm going to be honest with you, if Carson Wentz wasn't back, I'd go Ertz because I think that Foles and Ertz connection was deadly. But, like I said before, I traded Wentz away. There's going to be a reason for that. There's always a method to my madness. But, no, so obviously it's not Ertz. But, like I said, not being biased, but if Jordan Reed can stay healthy, this man has always been a threat. And I think with a Redskins offense, who we don't know how Crowder is going to play, and now we're still kind of iffy on Doxson. We might be a very run-happy offense, very maybe over-the-middle dump passes here and there, dish to Reed in the red zone. But, honestly, I there's 3 for me, and this is just my personal opinion. I've got Gronkowski, I've got Kelsey, and I've got Jordan Reed. I think those are the 3 for me personally that stand out. Reed fell all the way down those charts when he got injured. It's like people forgot about him. And obviously there's other tight ends around the league as well that I definitely like. I just don't know what the quarterback situations are really going to be because I would definitely say a name like Kyle Rudolph. We'll see how Kirk plays with him. But or even a guy like Eifert and Cincy. But honestly, yes, he is. He's going to be top 2. I've got him probably number 1 next year. We know Brady's going to be there for him. It's the best combo if he does stay healthy.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I agree with you. I think he's still top 2 tight end. I think Zach Ertz is going to sneak up into that realm. I think Travis Kelce is going to be there. But I think when it comes down to it, Gronk will be at worst, the number 2 tight end in the league next year in fantasy. All right, so the next guy we got on here is going into his 3rd season now. He had a pretty good rookie season. Everybody hyped up for last year. He had some injuries. Then he had some off-the-field issues with his running back, and the offense wasn't quite as good as it was the year before. So Dak Prescott, over/under top 10 QB.
Man, oh man. So how is Dallas's offense really going to be without Dez? And don't get me wrong, I don't think Dez will ever be a number 1 again. He just won't. But I kind of want to see how it's going to impact their offense as a whole. I'm looking around the league, and I don't think he is, to be honest. I really don't. There's a lot of transitions that we have in the NFL right now. I think I could probably name 5 off the bat that'll be better than obviously you've got your Breeze, whose arm's probably going to fall off any minute now. You got your Rodgers, you've got your Tom Brady. I'd love to see how Kirk does in Minnesota. Matt Ryan's going to be there, of course. Be eager to see what Andy Dalton does this year because, he could come out of the shadows every now and then. But of course, Deshaun Watson's coming back. I have him on my dynasty team, so he's definitely going to be good. And
Aaron Rodgers will be back top 10. He'll be back from injury.
Right, and even Garoppolo in San Francisco. Here's the thing. There's a lot of competition right now, and the NFL will always be a passing league. So I've got Dak maybe top 15, but definitely not top 10.
I'm with you on that as well. I'm going under on Dak Prescott being top 10. I just don't think he's that passer they thought they were in year 1. I think year 1 he was so super ultra conservative. The only thing that might get him into that top position is if he runs the ball a little bit more. I know in his first year, I think he had like 4 rushing touchdowns. So if he does something like that, maybe. But I think if we're just talking passer, I don't think he's going to be top 10. It's just too much competition. There's too many good quarterbacks still in the league. As you mentioned, Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. I mean, there's 3 right there. And then you got some of the guys like, Carson Wentz if he comes back, Deshaun Watson if he comes back. So I don't see him top 10. I think top 15 is probably where I have him as well. All right, so the next one we got on here is one of my guys. We just signed him to a big free agent contract. That's Jerrick McKinnon, top 10, over under top 10 running back this year.
Honestly, Jeff, I didn't even hear about that. You guys signed McKinnon?
Yes, we signed McKinnon to a huge contract.
Oh, wow. It must have went by me. No, well, this changes everything now, because if you were going to say, is he going to be a top 10 running back in Minnesota, I'd definitely say no, because there's a reason they signed Kirk, and I believe that they're going to definitely turn into a pass-happy offense. But
not to mention they got Dalvin Cook there.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. And I'm looking at him in Minnesota, but for one, I didn't hear about that. But now that I'm looking at it, he is in San Francisco.
He's going to be their Devontae Freeman.
Then this changes everything. So what was the question? You said top 10?
Top 10.
I still don't think he'll be top 10. I don't think that's going to change, because I can already name 10 other running backs off the bat that'll be better than he will. But he definitely has potential this year. I think he's going to have a breakout. I'd say top 20. But I still can't go top 10 with McKinnon, because in Minnesota he was averaging only like 3.5 yards a carry anyways. So there's a reason they drafted Dalvin Cook, So I don't see him being a breakout. I don't see him being a breakout running back, even in San Francisco.
I think I'm going to give him top 12, and that's just based on Shanahan's offense. I think the way he uses his running back, I think he'll catch a ton of passes. Top 12 in PPR leagues, mind you. I don't think he'll be a top 12 in standard leagues, which I always say now PPR is the new standard. But, in PPR leagues, McKinnon will be top 12. If we're talking standard leagues, for one, you're playing standard leagues, please stop. Start playing PPR. No one does standard anymore. So first of all, just start doing that. But if you are playing standard, McKinnon's probably top 15, top 18 in standard leagues. But in a PPR league, he's definitely top 12 for me. All right, so we'll go on to the next one here that you had mentioned earlier about possibly trying to get him in dynasty leagues, and that's Josh Gordon, over under top 10 receiver. Of course, he was the big man on campus a few years ago. I think he had a ridiculous season. Basically, won me my championship that year. All those off the field issues have kind of changed everything now. But can he get back to that top 10 status this year?
Yeah, he will. And like I said, I think Baker will be in at least by week 4. And I'm a Baker fan. I think he's ready for the NFL. And the Browns are coming. Not this year, not next year, but eventually. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that this season. So I still got Josh Gordon as top 10 as long as he stays out of trouble.
All right. I think I'm going to go under on this just based on the fact that Jarvis Landry is there. I think he soaks up some of those targets. They still have Corey Coleman. Of course, they got a stable now of running backs. They've got Nick Chubb. They've got Carlos Hyde. Duke Johnson is still there. I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed. And Josh Gordon isn't the guy that he was a few years ago. I think I'm going to go under on this one. I think Josh Gordon, still a good receiver, still worth drafting, still having on your team, just not the Josh Gordon that we had a few years ago. We'll stick there and stay in Cleveland. We're going to go with their tight end. Going into the second year, he had a sort of up and down rookie season. Disappointed pretty much overall, but I see him going pretty high in drafts now. David Njoku, is he going to be a top 5 tight end this year? Over under?
No, definitely under. I mean, I drafted him last year in our dynasty league, so that tells you that. No, there's no way he's going to be top 5. Top 5 tight end? No chance. Not happening. And for one, I mean, Gordon's going to steal all that. Everybody you just named, as far as Coleman and Josh Gordon, is going to steal his production. No, it's not happening.
All right, fair enough. You just got a thank you from someone in our dynasty league that now owns him. So he picked him up after you dropped him. So he's hoping that you just jinxed him or reverse jinxed him into a good season.
Yeah, I know who that person is.
All right, let's stick with the tight end theme here in our last over/under player. He changed teams. He went all the way from the West Coast back to the East Coast, and that's Jimmy Graham. Can he get back to top 5 status? Over/under top 5 for Jimmy Graham.
Like I said, I've already mentioned my top 5 tight ends, and honestly, Ertz was kind of in there. I'm obviously joking as far as with Wentz being out, but Wentz will be back. Obviously, we know Wentz will be good, and I've always been kind of an Ertz fan. I think Jimmy, he's 30 years old now. 30. I know he's over 30. He's 31 or 32.
Yep, he's somewhere in that range.
I think he's just getting that age where I think he's going to start to regress, and you're going to get a lot of these other younger tight ends that are just going to get so much better. But like I said, with Jordan Reed being healthy now, he'll be there. Obviously Gronk, obviously Travis Kelce, even a guy like Kyle Rudolph, I think will have a better year than Jimmy Graham. And I did say earlier, I don't know how he's going to be with Kirk, but obviously he's going to improve. So I just don't see it.
Fair enough. And one thing I will point out is everyone's all like, Jimmy Graham, Aaron Rodgers would be a great connection. But I think if I remember correctly, Aaron Rodgers has only had one tight end in his career that was a top 10 fantasy tight end. That was Jermichael Finley from a few years ago. So he's had a few good tight ends as far as name that haven't done anything. So I think Aaron Rodgers likes his receivers. He likes the guys in the slot. He likes, of course, Jordy Nelson's gone, but he liked Nelson when he was there. I don't think Rodgers is that kind of guy that relies on his tight end like most quarterbacks do. So I don't think Graham ends up in the top 5. I think he gets back into the top 10 again because tight end is a shallow position. But top 5 is a little bit too much for me, even with Rodgers as his quarterback now.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers likes to spread the love too. I mean, there's so many games I picked him in FanDuel, and it's just you get to the red zone, he goes in his shotgun formation. I want to say, Jeff, if I'm wrong, a lot of times when they're in shotgun formation, I don't even see tight ends in. It's all nothing. Like they're like 4 wide.
Yep.
Because that's Rodgers' offense. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. No, it's not happening.
All right, that wraps up over under. We're going to end the podcast here with a little keep cut trade. So we'll think of this from a dynasty perspective. If you owned these 3 guys, you need to keep one, you got to cut one, and you got to trade one. We'll start off with 3 quarterbacks, one younger guy that could have a decent season if he can get his head on straight, then 2 older guys that still have some left in the tank. We're going with Jameis Winston, Matthew Stafford, and Phillip Rivers. You got to keep one, cut one, and trade one. How you going?
Oh man, so this probably won't win me a lot of fans because this is cutthroat now. But honestly, oh man, well. I'm cutting Phillip Rivers because he's like 50 years old. He has 8 kids. He's on his way out of the league. I mean, it's just a matter of time. The Chargers, I'm sorry, but Phillip does not win championships. The Chargers are eventually going to realize this. He's not going to be there much longer. I'm keeping Matt Stafford because he's proven. He puts up numbers. It's what Matt Stafford does. And God, it sucks to say this, but I guess I'm trading Jameis, even though he's got so many weapons now in Tampa.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go a similar route. I'm also cutting Phillip Rivers, not because he's too old to do it. I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. But the Chargers seem to be snake bitten. They lose their players literally every year. They got players going out for the season, whether it be their offensive linemen. Danny Woodhead, I think 2 years in a row got out for the year. Keenan Allen was out for a year. It just seems like they're just snake bitten. They just can't stay healthy. So I'm gonna cut Rivers. I'm actually going to try to trade Matt Stafford. I think his value is as high as it'll be right now. I think they've got, they drafted a running back that everyone's excited about, Kerryon Johnson. So I think that, they also got LeGarrette Blount there now, so they'll have a run game. I think Matt Stafford had a pretty good season last year. I think that his value is probably as high as it'll be right now. And I'm going to keep Jameis Winston, not because I actually do own him in my Dynasty League, but I think Winston does have a bright future. I think the Bucs are going in the right direction. I think if he can just not be their focal part of their offense, which I think they're trying to do with they drafted a running back as well, keep the ball out of his hands. I think Winston in this year or next year can have his breakout season, and long term I think he'll be the better quarterback than those 2.
Right there with you.
All right, so the next one I got here, 3 running backs. We kind of talked about all 3 of them at some point on this podcast. All predicted to have breakout seasons, but some of them may or may not. We're going to go with Joe Mixon of the Bengals, Derrick Henry of the Titans, and the aforementioned Jerrick McKinnon of the 49ers. You got to keep one, you got to cut one, and you got to trade one.
All right, so I think you're going to agree with me here. I can just feel it, all right? Obviously, you keep Derrick Henry. That's not even a question. I think you're going to trade Joe Mixon because, like you agreed with me earlier, the hype train's kind of there, and you could probably get a lot of high value for him, and then you're going to cut McKinnon.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say cut McKinnon because I think he can be a top 12 running back, but I think you're right. I think Derrick Henry is the workhorse there in Tennessee. He's a little bit younger than Jerrick McKinnon. McKinnon's got some injury history there where he's missed some games with Minnesota, so there's always that potential that you can lose him for a couple games. Joe Mixon's hype train is legit. I mean, everywhere I go on Facebook and Twitter and I'm talking about fantasy football, someone's talking about Joe Mixon. I'm not buying it, but somebody will buy it, and I'll sell it to them for $1.50 on the dollar. So, give a little bit more for him than potential that he could be worth. So, yeah, I think I agree. I'm going the same way you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, the next three I got here are three younger guys, sort of have some upside. We got Josh Gordon, who we mentioned earlier, not being the same receiver he used to be, but he's still pretty good. A second-year receiver in Juju Smith-Schuster, and Adam Thielen, who had a breakout season last year, but now has a new quarterback and it's just a new look overall for their offense. Who you keeping, who you cutting, who you trading?
All right, so there's a strategy to this one. I looked at these three names. I heard you say them, and I think I formed a master plan if you're in this situation. Obviously, you keep Juju. There's just no question about it. He's a stud. He is what he is. Two, you're going to trade Josh Gordon. No, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. You're going to trade Adam Thielen. And the reason you're going to trade Adam Thielen is because he is literally the wide receiver version of Peyton Hillis. I'm telling you right now, this guy's going to suck next year. You know what? This is Shane's Dynasty Advice 2018.
Hey, did you hear that sound? That was everybody that owns Adam Thielen just cheering right now because you just called him out.
Shane's Dynasty Advice 2018. This is a free trial for all of you. I'm actually getting people sending me emails about ordering the guide. We'll get to that later. But no, letting you know right now, Adam Thielen is going to have a horrible season next year. He's the wide receiver version of Peyton Hillis. He's going to be a no-namer next year. And I'm not just saying this because I have hatred for Kirk Cousins not being in DC anymore. But no, it's going to regress. I'm just calling it right now. And then what you're going to do is, even though I love this guy so much, is you're going to cut Josh Gordon because he's probably going to be suspended by week 6 when he's smoking weed, upset at the Browns organization that they haven't brought in Baker Mayfield yet to throw him touchdowns.
Fair enough. So Josh Gordon's getting suspended. Adam Thielen's going to suck next year, and you're keeping Juju in that offense with the Steelers. All right, fair enough. I think I'm going to go – see, this one's tough for me because – I, too, am not buying Adam Thielen. I don't think he's going to suck necessarily. I do think he regresses a little bit. Juju, I like him right now that Ben's there, but what's going to happen when Ben's not there is what scares me. I think I'm actually going to keep Josh Gordon. I'm going to trade Juju because I think his value is super high right now. He still is the number 2 receiver on the team, possibly, but he's probably the number 3 option with Le'Veon Bell there. So I think I'm going to try to get some value for Juju, and then I'll cut Adam Thielen. I don't think he's going to suck like you think he's going to suck. I just think he'll regress a little bit. I don't think he'll be what he was last year. I think he had a very good season, and I think he'll be still a good receiver, just not what he was last season.
All
right. So we got 2 more to go here. We got the next one is Josh Doxson of your Redskins. Martavis Bryant, who's now in Oakland, and Devontae Parker, who's been predicted to have a breakout season for the Dolphins for forever now. Who are you going to keep? Who are you going to cut? Who are you going to trade?
I mean, I think you gotta keep Doxson, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Redskins fan. I know it definitely feels like I am saying that because of that, but no, I still think you definitely. You got to keep Doxson. The only reason I say that is because, honestly, I think Smith is going to bring that deep ball. And who else do the Redskins have? I still think our offense is just absolute garbage. I still don't trust in Crowder. Reed is going to be out with concussion probably by week 2. So they're going to need weapons. He's going to get the targets. This is their saving grace. I mean, Dan Snyder almost punched a freaking hole through the wall a few years ago when they found out that he was going to be injured or, was going to be sitting out. So the Redskins are literally riding this horse all the way to the ground. So they're going to believe in this kid. He's going to get a lot of looks. So I definitely think you keep him. And then you said Martavis Bryant and Devontae Parker.
Yep.
So I want to say you might as well. I think you got to trade Martavis. I know he's in Oakland now. He's over there with Jordy, but I still think Jordy's going to steal a lot of production from him. And I know Jordy's old. but I think he's really going to find a spot in this Oakland offense. I think he just needed out of Green Bay.
And you got Amari Cooper there too, still. So.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm not even counting Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's their one. We already know that. I'm looking at the number 2 and number 3. So that's who he's going to be competing with. So I see Martavis being, obviously a number 3 receiver there. I think Jordy will pass him. And then, what? So did I say trade him or cut him? I don't remember.
You said keep Doxson. You said trade Bryant, so you're going to cut Parker.
Yep. I'm going to cut, and I'm only cutting Devontae because I look at all 3 of these teams, and I honestly think with Devontae being on the Dolphins as the wide receiver, Tannehill, I still don't trust in him. I just want to see how this Dolphins team does, and I think you're kind of risking it. But I mean, Parker is their best receiver, but I think when it comes down to the situation, the scenario, that's where I'm going.
I think I'm going a similar route. I'm also going to keep Josh Doxson, even though I don't love him. I think he is the offense for the Redskins as far as passing game. Jordan Reed, like you said, won't make it past week 2, most likely. He becomes the de facto number 1 option in the passing game. I think that just pure volume alone makes him a good play. I think he is a clear-cut number 1 now. I, too, am going to try to trade Martavis Bryant. I think he's a one-trick pony. I don't think he's going to be anything more than that for his entire career. I'm going to run as fast as I can, as far as I can, throw it as far as you can, I'll go get it. I don't think Derek Carr is that kind of quarterback that doesn't take those kind of chances very often. So I don't think Bryant gets quite the volume that he did when he was a hot commodity with the Steelers. So I think I'm going to try to trade him while his value is high. And then I'm going to cut Devontae Parker because we've basically seen this story before. We keep saying he's going to have a breakout season. It just keeps not happening. Situation's the same. He has the same quarterback he's had. Last year he had a sort of a revolving door with Jay Cutler there, but I think Tannehill, if you're going to compare Tannehill and Cutler, I think Cutler fits Devontae Parker better than Tannehill does. Tannehill throws the ball, 3 yards down the field. This is basically what he does. At least Cutler would air it out once in a while for Parker. That gave him some value, but with Tannehill there and his super ultra conservative type quarterback that he is, I don't think Parker has much value. So I think I'm going to cut him as well. All right, the last one I got here for you is I'm going to kind of change it a little bit because we just found out Hunter Henry is now out for the season. I had him on this list, so I'm going to change it a little bit. We're going to go with David Njoku, tight end, O.J. Howard, and the aforementioned Kittle from the 49ers. Who are you going to keep? Who are you going to cut? Who are you going to trade?
Oh, well, I pretty much cut Njoku personally, and that's certain somebody picked him up. So I got to stay true to the process, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm cutting Njoku. I think I'm going to keep Hunter Henry, and I'm trading Howard. I'll just make that one quick. All
right, fair enough. I think I'm going the same way. I think I personally own O.J. Howard. I'm hoping that he has a breakout season. But if it's Henry or / Kittle from the 49ers, if one of those two guys is there, I think they have more upside. I'll keep them. And yeah, I think Njoku, I think he is what he is. I don't think he gets a breakout season. He's an athletic freak, but he's just not a tight end in this league. I don't think he's an NFL tight end. So I think I'm going to cut him as well. All right, man. That pretty much wraps everything up, man. I want to thank you again for coming on the show. I know you said you're feeling a little bit under the weather, so I appreciate you coming on. You did pretty well, man. You didn't cough or sneeze or anything during the podcast, so good stuff there.
Oh, don't worry, I'm dying over here. I've got a quick switch on my headset that I have to hit every time I'm over here yakking a long gal. But yeah, definitely, this is definitely a good refresher course for NFL. I think I've been lost in the baseball sauce. So this was definitely a reminder that NFL season's coming, and
good stuff.
Felt good.
Good stuff. I want to drop a quick promo. Our next podcast, guys, is going to be, I'm going to have 6 Dynasty experts come on. We're going to do a 3-round rookie mock draft. That'll be next Tuesday live. Again, 6 experts from I've kind of known through Twitter and Facebook. They're going to come on, and we're just going to assign picks to each one of them. So it'll be a great show. I encourage everybody that's listening right now to check that podcast out as well. Shane, once again, thanks for coming on. I appreciate everything that you do, man. And I'd love to have you on back during the season, and we can do some more predictions, give you a shot to redeem yourself and get rid of that jinx name.
As always, Jeff, trust the process and screenshot this.
All right. That's a wrap. Have a good night.